Deonna Purrazzo, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what was it about Stone Cold hitting someone in the head with the chair that made you fall in love with wrestling?
I don't know. I just think it was like something I had never seen before. And, of course I thought at that point, like, wrestling was real. So this was like a real man, like beating the crap out of another man for real. And I was just like, oh my God, who would do something like that? Like, I was just so blown away by the thought that someone would actually do that to another human being.
So growing up, was watching wrestling a family thing? Because when I was growing up, like for pay-per-views, it'd be my grandfather, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncle. We'd all sit down and watch the pay-per-views. Was it the same for you?
For the most part, until I got a little bit older. But yeah, it was like a special thing that my parents would let us buy the pay-per-view. And my brother and I and my mom would always sit down and watch together. And my mom, like, inadvertently had become a wrestling fan too, because she was paying for everything. So yeah, it kind of became like the monthly thing we got to do together.
You were so young when you first started wrestling. What did your family think about you deciding to pursue that as a career?
So when I was 9, I had first told them, like, I want to be a professional wrestler one day. And by the time I was 15, there was a school like 25 or 30 minutes away that took students at 16, as long as there was like parental consent. And I remember like printing out all the paperwork and being like, please, this is what I want to do, Mom, please. Like, once I get my license, like, I had a whole plan of she only needed to drive me for X amount of time, and then I could get my license and drive myself. So really what she had told me then was like, if this is what you want to do when you're 18 and you could make it work and you can pay for it, then you can do that. But I really think they thought like, oh, this is a phase and she'll get over it and she'll want to do like a real profession. But by the time I was 18, I found a wrestling school, which was closer to my house, and I signed up. And I think they were more upset that I like signed a contract to pay like $3,000 to learn how to wrestle while I was working part-time and going to school full-time. And I just didn't have the means to pay for what I signed up for. So they were a bit upset.
And you were 18 when you debuted at, I guess, TNA Impact now, right?
Yeah.
And what was that like? I mean, you're so young. Like you said, you just started training not that long ago. What was that experience like, getting to be on TV in your first match?
Honestly, like, it's so funny to look back and see, like, I had just like makeshift Dancewear Solutions website gear, like, which all the girls laughed because we all had gear, our first set of gear from that website.
Yeah.
And I was wearing high-waisted shorts at the time, and I remember talking to Christy Hemme, who had called me and being like, okay, go find something else. And it was just such a whirlwind, that like 48-hour period of finding out I was going to fly to Florida and then trying to like get extensions and like find gear that was appropriate and then fly and do it. Like, I was so in over my head. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea like how to put a match together on TV or work a hard cam and kind of be a TV star. I was just this like young, naive girl who had no clue what she was getting herself into.
And then, so in 2016, you actually went back to Impact and you got to wrestle your friend, Madison Rayne. What was the difference between your debut in 2014 and then the Deonna who came back in 2016?
I think like the difference was just like the confidence I had in my wrestling ability. Right. And at that point, like, I had, done more indies. I had traveled the country. Like, I had my first tour of Stardom planned. So I was a bit more confident in like the wrestler that I was. But I've talked about it more recently. Like, character development is something that Impact and then TNA was built on, and right. Something like they pushed very heavily when I was there. It was always like, well, what do you want to be? What character do you want to be? Because I didn't have a character.
Yeah.
So it was hard to go there and then be like, just be this person for a day. But what was fun was like, we used that 2014 match and like who I was then into like, now you're gonna be a super fan because you're back and you're pissed. Like, it was really fun to make up a little story with Madison, and of course, like, we've become such good friends since. So it was fun, but I think I was still in this like transition period of figuring out who I was.
So during that time, you were still teaching, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a few questions. Did your students and the people you work with, did they know you were a wrestler?
Yeah, so when I applied for the teaching job,
Right.
I had said to them, like, listen, I'm a professional wrestler. And originally it was just supposed to be part-time. I was supposed to come in like early mornings or like in the afternoons. And slowly it developed into like a full-time job. But I had told them, look, I'm a professional wrestler and that's always going to come first.
Right.
So I just want you to know that ahead of time. And if that's going to be an issue and the time I need off and it's not negotiable. So if you can't work with me on that, then don't hire me. And it was just something that I was always honest about. I was always open about. And we kind of just, I had a really good relationship with my bosses and they just let me do what I needed to do.
So how were you able to balance that? I mean, that has to be tough.
Yeah, it was tough because at the start, like I said, I was still going to college full time. I was then like working part time, but kind of full time. And then I was wrestling Fridays and Saturdays. So it was like really hard to balance to where I couldn't do all three. And I actually dropped out of college to work full time and pursue wrestling full time. But the more that wrestling became like more predominant in my life, and I got these opportunities to like, go to Japan for 3 months at a time, or, go to England and wrestle for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. The more time I had to take off from teaching. So slowly I just started to like transition myself out of my classroom and another person in. And eventually I had to quit because it just wasn't fair to the students to be taking so much time off. And I taught preschool. So consistency is such a big deal
Right.
when you're potty training kids and you're trying to teach them how to write and learn letters and so I just had to do the right thing and what was right for the kids at the time, and that was to not be their teacher anymore.
So 2016, you were at Impact and then you left Impact. Was it from Impact to WWE, or was it Impact, ROH, and a few stopovers before WWE?
Yeah, there was a few times that I went back to Impact in the beginning of 2017, and I was still like doing stuff at Ring of Honor and still doing stuff at NXT. So I think like the end of 2016, 2017 was when I really was like doing all three and then doing indies and just like being in the mix everywhere.
Yeah, you've done a lot in such a short period of time. So you finally make it to WWE, which is the dream come true. It's kind of like the you made it moment, for any pro wrestler.
Yeah.
Did it meet your expectations?
No.
Why?
I think so. When I signed to NXT in July of 2018, like I had done 2 tours of Stardom. I was signed to Ring of Honor. I did like a tour of Australia, and I was just so busy and I was all over the world that I think my expectation for how I was being brought in or why I was being brought in was much higher than where they saw me still. And I think that I had worked so hard to prove like, hey, I am a superstar and I'm going to put the work in and I'm going to make myself undeniable. And I thought I had done that when I finally earned a contract. And ultimately, like, that wasn't the case. And I was never seen like that. And I just, it was very disappointing because I just want to feel a part of wherever I am. And I want to feel valued as anyone does. And as time went on, it just kind of became more evident that it was like, maybe I wasn't signed for the reasons I thought I was.
Right. So, but I heard you mention that there was a lot of times where you were traveling, but you were backstage, you weren't on the shows. How difficult is that for a wrestler?
Yeah, I think it's hard, more specifically for someone who is, saw the success that I saw. And as like many wrestlers who have been signed to NXT since, like the thing about the indies is like your success is directly related to the work you put in.
Right.
So the opportunities you get are directly affected by what you're doing or how active you are on social media. And I think my biggest downfall was like trying to trust someone else with that process. And I just love wrestling. Like, I'll admit, like, I'm not a great character. I am like a wrestler's wrestler, and I love to do the technical wrestling stuff. And then to be at shows and like not be a part of the show, or just kind of be sitting back and like just feeling uncomfortable and on eggshells and kind of like I don't know where my place is, and it doesn't seem like the effort I'm putting in is recognized or is paying off. I think not just for me, but might be hard for anyone.
So now you get your release from the WWE. I'm sure you have or had a ton of options. Why Impact?
Yeah, I think with Impact, they just have put so much emphasis on their women's division. And everyone is getting an opportunity within the women's division to prove themselves, to make themselves known, to be on TV week after week and kind of really make a difference. And I think for me, it was the perfect time because I didn't get to do that for so long. And I've been so hungry and eager to do that the opportunities that they were giving me and we were, negotiating about and talking about prior to going in for the tapings, just seemed ideal and seemed like I could really make the biggest impact, no pun intended, by going there and doing what they had envisioned for me.
Yeah. So now you add to that Knockouts division, which is known as one of the best women's division in pro wrestling. Who are you looking forward to working with the most?
Well, Jordynne Grace is the Impact champion. So there's that. She's the Knockouts champion, and I would love to check off being a champion on the list of things I'd like to do in my career. But I've never worked with Taya Valkyrie, so that would be something that I'd be interested in doing. I've never, wrestled Rosemary or Kiera Hogan, and so there's just a really solid group of girls that I've never gotten to do anything with on the indies that I think present new opportunities, present new avenues for me to explore who I am as a character and a wrestler. So there's just all of the girls, I keep saying it's such a great women's division, but I feel like we all offer something different and we all come from different backgrounds that it makes really good storytelling. So
as you know, Tessa Blanchard is the world champion at Impact, the first female world champion at a big promotion.
Yeah.
Is that something that you wanted to do or you want to do?
To be the world champion?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it presented a really great opportunity for Tessa because for the last couple years beforehand, she was really involved in intergender wrestling. And that is something that I've not really touched very much. And I don't know that it's something that I could make believable and present in the way that she's presented it. So, I mean, it's incredible that they have their first ever women's world champion, but I don't necessarily know that that's something that the avenue that I'd be interested in going.
So we talked about school before, but you're doing some schooling right now, right?
Yes, I'm back in college.
It never ends.
No, it doesn't. But it's exciting because I felt like, being released and having some time, that first month that I couldn't really do anything, it was the perfect time where we were in quarantine. There was nothing else that I could do, so I might as well take this time to better myself and do something that I kept saying for the last 2 years. I want to go back to school. And I just never really put in all the effort to get all the paperwork done and transfer everything that I needed to. So it was just the perfect time to do it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Actually, no, I read that your birthday's coming up, right? June 10th?
Yes.
Okay, I want to wish you a happy early birthday.
Thank you so much.
Any plans? What can you do, right?
So actually I'm still in Florida. So we, I think are entering phase 2 or phase 3. So restaurants are open. They can have, I think, up to 50% capacity. So a group of my friends and we're all going to get together and have dinner.
Awesome. Well, I hope it's a great one. And thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.